the CZ Shadow 2, or is there a better option? We're gonna find out today on Sunday Gunday. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things, and today we have a pretty special one on the chopping block. A big supporter of the channel and now close friend of mine that I met through Patreon reached out to me and he said, "Hey man, I really want to get this gun in your hands because I love it and I'm pretty sure you will too." Now, I have actually wanted to shoot one of these for a long time, but I just never really had the chance, but today is now that day. So without further ado, today we're taking a look at the CZ Shadow 2. When it comes to competitive shooting, CZs are now used by a large population of top-level competitors. Previously, the SP01 Shadow was the platform of choice, and that was until the Shadow 2 was released. CZ took the best features from the original Shadow and improved upon them to create this masterpiece. Starting from the top down, you will find a red fiber optic front post sight coupled with an adjustable black serrated rear, always a win in my book. The slide has deep serrations, both front and rear, and the whole profile is contoured, keeping a majority of the mass centered with the shooter's hand. This, coupled with the high beaver tail, undercut trigger guard, and the overall weight of the gun, should keep the Shadow 2 shooting pretty smooth. A lot of that weight comes from the all-metal frame, where you will also find features like the adjustable extended mag release. This release is swappable, and it has 3 different settings to keep it where it works best for the shooter. There is some very sleek texturing and knurling all around the grips, and since it is a full-size gun, almost anyone should be able to get a pretty good grip on it. And then there is the trigger. This is definitely one of the biggest highlights of this gun. Just from dry firing it, I can already appreciate the work CZ has done here, leaving an insanely smooth double action and a crisp, clean single action, but we will talk more about that later. So I, of course, have already taken this gun out to the range with me and put a bunch of rounds down range the other week. I would like to give a big thank you to Panda Tactical for being the ammo sponsor of this episode of Sunday Gunday. If you guys don't follow them on Instagram already, please do that to show your support, and if you ever have any kind of gun question, those are the guys to ask. So let's get to the footage of me loading up these restricted mags, and then I'll come back and give you guys my first mag impression. Now, unfortunately, my friend who loaned me this gun lives in one of those states, so I only have 10 round mags for this whole video. There's gonna be a lot of reloading. Alright guys, back for my first mag impression, and this gun definitely leaves an impression just from holding it in your hand. Just from picking this gun up off the table, you can tell that it is a very heavy gun. Obviously the whole thing is metal. The ergos do feel really great though. I am definitely a big fan of this super high beaver tail. I can really slam my hand up in there and it feels very locked in. The gun is about 3 pounds and it is a long slide, but at the same time it does feel pretty balanced. The point of aim seems pretty nice and almost natural. And then the knurling around the grips and the sides, it is pretty flashy, but at the same time, it's effective as well. Now with the first shots, that's kind of where this gun took me by surprise. Just judging by the looks of it, how the weight is kind of distributed over the center of the slide. I was expecting a different recoil impulse out of this. Because the slide is so short in that CZ fashion, I thought it might shoot a little bit closer to like a P07, maybe even the P10C. Granted, they are very different guns and I completely understand that, but I thought the gun was going to shoot a little bit flatter. Although the slide is short, there's still a lot of mass moving back and forth on top. So after the first couple of shots, that muzzle rise caught me off guard just a little bit, but with the way CZs are designed and their rail system in here, this thing is still very, very smooth. The controls on this are very nice as well. I definitely dig that extended mag button. I did not do any adjustments to this. This is how the gun was set up, but it fits my hand very well and I have no problem ripping those mags out. The safety is ambidextrous. That is neither a pro or a con to me. The only way it really would be a con is if it got in the way of my trigger finger, but as you can see, it is very far out of the way. And then the slide catch, I can definitely get to that with my thumb. However, I have fairly large hands, so if your hands are on the smaller side, I think you might struggle a little bit getting up to that. The serrations on this thing are very deep and definitely grippy. I do have a snap cap in there just for safety purposes. There's just a lot of nice features that you would and probably should expect from a company like CZ. The sights, like I mentioned, are a red fiber optic front post and a black serrated rear. I am a fan of this combination, however the front sight post is a little bit on the smaller side. I don't think it picks up quite as much light as some bigger options would. But still, if you're out on the range, even in a very dreary environment like you see me shooting in this video, that thing picked up just enough ambient light to light itself up, and overall, it's still good. Now there's still a bunch of other things that I want to hit on for the Shadow 2, especially that trigger. Ooh, is it a sweet trigger. But I don't want to bore you guys to death, so first let's roll some more shooting footage and then I will come back and give you guys my final impression. First I want to check out how smooth this double action really is. We've got a little distance on these targets now. I'm going to actually try to shoot this thing in double action to see if I can land shots even with that long trigger pull. Yep. Super accurate, as I would expect. Now we're really far back, way outside of any typical competition style pistol shooting like this. The targets are actually really hard to see, even with my naked eye through this fog, but we'll see if we can manage. Can you hear that? The gun is definitely capable of being accurate at this distance. Not necessarily myself, but this thing definitely. You know, we have to have a mag dump. But since they're only 10 rounders, we'll get a bonus mag too. Alright guys, back for my final thoughts on the CZ Shadow 2. We gotta talk about this trigger now. Like I said, I do have a snap cap in here for not only my safety, but the safety of the gun as well. I will decock this thing. I do wish this had a decocker, which it does not. But I will decock it so we can first take a look at the double action pull. This is by far the smoothest double action trigger pull that I've ever felt on a CZ like this. The trigger on the Shadow 2 really is its claim to fame, and it kind of speaks for itself. There's a little bit of pre-travel until you feel that tension, and then a nice, smooth trigger pull all the way back. But as you can see, it goes right back to that wall, and it is super crisp. Here it is again, even holding the gun all awkwardly. You can sort of watch the hammer travel back, and it is so smooth. Right to that wall. It is such a nice trigger. And then for the single action, there is a little bit of travel to the wall, and then there is a slight bit of creep if I pull really slowly. The trigger moved ever so slightly there, but now I know that I'm right on top of that wall for a super light, crisp, and clean break. I don't want to say that this is quite a glass-like break, but it is damn near close for a pistol like this. Just shooting this thing in double action at a normal rate of speed is so satisfying because you really don't feel any grittiness at all. And then of course single action, when you are shooting in real time, you get through that little bit of take up and then the trigger is light enough that you don't feel anything after that. There's just something about a heavy full-size gun like this that feels really nice when shooting. Obviously it is super smooth, and then coupled with that awesome trigger, this is definitely one of my favorite CZ guns as of right now. Now I'm not into competition shooting, but a gun like this obviously makes sense for a role like that. If I were to own something like this, it would really be like a range toy or almost like a save queen. Typically it should be 18 rounds plus one in the pipe. And I could definitely see myself taking this thing out to the range and putting mag after mag through it without any complaints. Now the one thing that I have not touched on yet is the price point. The MSRP on the Shadow 2, as of right now, you're looking at around $1,300. That is sort of on the expensive side, but when you're comparing this to other handguns in its same class, I think the price is definitely justified. Again, this gun falls into one of those categories that, do I need a Shadow 2? No, but do I want one? Yeah, I kind of do want one. But at $1,300, do I really want to go out and pick one up right now? I don't know if I can really justify that. And I am making that personal opinion, especially when comparing this to other guns, like the CZ75 SP01. This gun was also loaned to me by my same friend who loaned me the Shadow 2. He told me he picked this gun up for just $400 and then sent it out to CZ Custom Works to have a trigger package done on it. So that was another about $425. You're looking at around $825 total for this exact package. And he let me borrow this one too, and I of course had to take it out on the same day as the Shadow 2 and sort of put them head to head. I really had no intention on shooting this gun that day, but I figured since it was there and it is using the same exact magazines, I might as well just put one down and see how it went. CZ75 SP01. Let's see how this thing compares. Double action. Ooh, man, I don't know. I gotta go for another mag of that. And just one more for good luck. So as you guys saw, that one mag turned into a second mag and then a third mag because I really enjoyed shooting this thing just after that first mag. Some things that are a little bit different on the SP01 versus the Shadow 2 is the grips. They definitely feel different in the hand. This one obviously feels a little bit lighter because it is ever so slightly smaller. I do like the rubberized grips on this. I feel like if my hands were sweaty or anything like that, that I would have a better grip on this versus the metal grips on the Shadow 2. The beaver tail is not quite as high as it is on the Shadow 2, so I prefer that on this gun. The controls are relatively the same. The sights are almost the same as well. The 75 does have true dots on the back here, so that should help you in some low light or dark situations. But then it really came down to comparing the price points and the triggers. So this gun, as it came back from CZ Custom Works, it came with a competition hammer and then a full trigger job. The trigger shoes on these are ever so slightly different. There's a little bit of more hook to this one. If you guys watch the channel a lot and you know my preferences, you will know that I like a flatter trigger. So I would prefer the shoe on the CZ Shadow 2. But for a gun with a trigger job that is coming in at almost $500 less than the Shadow 2, this thing is definitely no slouch. Here we'll take a closer look at the double action. There's a little bit of pre-travel until you feel tension. And then again, there is a very nice smooth trigger pull back to the wall. And now once you're here, again, a very crisp break. Let's check out the single action. A little bit of take up to the wall. Again, a little bit of creep. And then again, that really nice break. So shooting these two side by side right next to each other, I think I would definitely say that the Shadow 2 has a better trigger. But the 75 SP01 with the upgraded trigger is not too far behind this at all. When you're shooting really fast and not really focusing on every little grit and detail in the trigger, I think the only thing I would really notice is the actual trigger shoe itself. This thing really impressed me, and at almost $500 less, I think I might opt for one of these over the Shadow 2. Now, like I said, I don't plan on buying a Shadow 2, and I don't plan on buying one of these either. But when you're comparing the direct values next to each other, if you are strapped for cash, then I think this might be a better option. I think the Shadow 2 is way more aesthetically pleasing than something like this. There's a bunch of different options that these are offered in, and colorways and different grip scales and stuff like that. The Shadow 2 also feels more locked into my hand, whether I'm shooting right-handed or left-handed. So if I was making a purchase and money really wasn't an option, maybe I would opt for this. But the SP01 on the other hand is a little bit lighter. The trigger is still very nice. And because the slide is a little bit shorter, there is less mass that is coming back as recoil. And I think this thing actually shot a little bit flatter too than the CZ Shadow 2. So all of that stuff is obviously personal preference. I don't want to bore you guys to death by just telling you what I prefer over and over again. But I am curious to see if any of you out there have shot the 75 SP01 with a tuned up trigger like this. And if you also have shot a Shadow 2, let me know what you guys think about the comparison, because I think it is a very close battle for sure. So I guess that's really all that I had for today. If you guys have any questions on either of these guns, let me know in the comments down below. Like I said, these are not my guns, but I did spend a little bit of time with them now, so chances are I can answer something if you have any questions. I have to give a big thank you again to Panda Tactical for sponsoring the ammo for this episode, as well as my friend who let me borrow both of these guns. These things were loaned to me in great condition, and I will be sure to clean them up and return them in the same fashion that I received them. So that is all for today. If you guys are new to this channel, consider clicking subscribe because I make new videos every week, and that's going to be all. So as always, thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you in the next one.